I wanted to highlight on what transpired in the COP. And the COP actually was described as finance COP because the understanding was that Baku is supposed to deliver a climate finance goal that is supposed to replace the 100 billion Copenhagen pledge that was done in 2009. And so there were a lot of expectations because between when the pledge was made and then 2020, the understanding of developing countries were that the pledge has not been honored the way it's supposed to be. Even if it is honored, the accounting for the pledge is not straightforward. And so it is difficult to be able to transparently talk about that Copenhagen political pledge. And so 2 years ago, there was a decision for the UNFCCC parties to comprehensively develop a structure that is going to have a goal that will replace the 100 billion starting from next year, 2025. And so last year and this year, there had been several workshops on the new collective quantifiable climate goal, which is the NCQG for short. And so every attention was on this goal. Apart from the finance goal, there were also other negotiations that were also very important for the work that we do. So the adaptation, so the global goal and adaptation was also in the picture. And then also the new discussion on the just transition was also in the picture. So focusing on the finance, the expectation was that this finance goal should have a number. So people are talking about quantum. And then also there's supposed to be clearly a definition of what we mean by climate finance, so that if you're able to assess how much has been contributed, because there's a clear definition, you'll be able to properly assess that. Why was this important? This was important because if you look at the OECD data, Oxfam data, and some other sources, each of them has a different narrative when it comes to the accounting for the old 100 billion pledge that was made. It was simply because there wasn't any clear definition of climate finance. One of the expectations was the fact that the number should be higher, a minimum of 1.3 trillion US dollars annually. That was the expectation from the developing countries. Why? Because there had been some kind of assessment on climate finance gap, and such an amount will be a minimum amount to be able to mobilize every year to support climate action. So that was one of the expectations. And then also, there was also an expectation that this money should flow from developed countries to developing countries. And then basically the money should be able to support mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage related issues. Again, it was also expected that this finance goal should be mainly public financing, largely. Of course, there could be some other instruments, private financing and philanthropy and other sources, but that shouldn't be the main target. The main target should be public financing. And so the stakes were very high from the beginning. The expectations were very high. We had a lengthy negotiations, but as negotiations, you cannot win everything that you had on the table. Some, you win something, you lose something. So at the end of the day, an amount of 300 billion was agreed annually to be mobilized to support climate action, even though this is not what we expected. But I personally think that it is an improvement of the old finance goal. And if it is going to be delivered, because it's one thing to promise and then another thing to deliver on it. So if only is going to be delivered annually, then at least some of the challenges that we are facing will be resolved. On adaptation, I think the decision on the GJ is also progressive, because what we got means that at least there's clarity on how many indicators are expected from the experts. The decision said that not more than 100 indicators, and these indicators can be aggregated at a global level. And this is basically what the discussion or the expectations has been. And so for that one, it was very clear. One of the good things that also came under the adaptation discussion was also the fact that the GJA now has a decision to go beyond Belem, which is next year COP. So there's lifeline beyond COP30. And one of the advantages, for the first time, you are going to have adaptation as an agenda item. In the past, you can find adaptation issues under certain agenda items. And now you are going to have a dedicated agenda item under the COP or under the CMA for negotiations. For loss and damage fund, there had been some kind of motivation to increase the fund in the newly fund that has been established, because as we speak now, we have only about 830 million US dollars since last year, because last year we left Dubai with about 750 US dollars, but it hasn't, between that time and now, nothing much had been added to that fund. And so there were motivations or encouragement for countries to support or donate into the adaptation fund, because it is one of the key things that is going to solve challenges or problems for developing countries. And so COP29, in my short summary, it's a mixture of positives and then some disappointments. But at least you can actually see that some of the key decisions we got gives us some hope that if we continue talking, we can be able to enhance the negotiations that we are talking about. In terms of accounting for the money, the decision was very clear, transparently, ex ante and then ex post information and data that can help countries to be able to assess how much is being put from different sources, so that all of us will be on the same page in terms of accounting for what have been provided.
Yeah, Alfred?
I suppose there are so many countries from the developing countries that are going to benefit from this fund. I would want to ask, how is this fund going to be disbursed among these countries? How much is each going to get, and what are they going to use the money for?
Okay, so maybe let me start from what is it going to be used for? So climate finance, per the decision, is for mitigation and adaptation, mainly action. So it can be adaptation plans, can be concrete adaptation interventions on the ground. It can be renewable energy issues, transportation. It can also be anything that has to be mitigation in nature. So basically, that is the scope in terms of coverage, what it's going to cover. For the first question as to how much each country is going to get, climate finance are pledges, and the pledges don't go to countries, or they are not shared to countries. So there isn't anything like country allocation that this country is entitled to this amount or that. However, when these pledges are made, there are financial mechanisms under the UNFCCC. Financial mechanisms like the Adaptation Fund, the Green Climate Fund, the Global Environment Facility, the Loss and Damage Fund, the Least Developed Country Fund, the Special Climate Fund. These are all vertical funds that operate, we call them the financial mechanisms under the UNFCCC. And so these pledges, if they come in commitment, are sent to any of these funds. It depends on, the choice is on the country that is making the pledge. For example, if Denmark wants to contribute 2 billion euros as climate finance, Denmark will decide, okay, our money is going into the Green Climate Fund. So the money will be channeled into the Green Climate Fund. And then Denmark will say they have contributed 2 billion. And then the whole world will record it. Now, when it goes to the Green Climate Fund, there are access modalities for assessing that particular fund. And we all know that for Green Climate Fund, it is 50% mitigation, 50% adaptation. And so when Denmark is sending the money to Green Climate Fund, automatically Denmark should know that 50% of that money will be for mitigation and 50% of that money will be for adaptation. Once it is there, it is up to countries to develop project proposals and programs and send to these funds and then get the money. So how much you can get depends on your capacity to be able to write bankable project proposals to send to these funds for access. So it's not like you are going to have country allocations. However, in the discussions, the least developed country parties, the LDCs, and also the small island states were trying to negotiate for a certain percentage of this amount that can be dedicated to least developed countries. They were quoting some amount that were not agreed upon. If they continue to talk and then they are able to get some ring-fenced amount, then that amount is solely dedicated for the LDC countries and then the states. But as we speak now, it is going to a common basket or different baskets, and then countries have to assess them. There can also be bilaterals, maybe country to country can decide to support country directly, and that can be counted for as part of this money. So it is being mobilized from a wide variety of sources, and the sources are different. So this is the response to the question that you asked.
Assuming, for example, Ghana wants to access some of this funding, is it from governmental level or is it from, I don't know, who can assess it? Let's say if Ghana, is it government or is it NGOs or who?
So again, I'm drawing your attention to the fact that the monies are not sitting at one point. The monies are coming from different sources. Denmark, for example, can decide to have a bilateral agreement with a certain NGO in Ghana and support them. It is part of the money that we are talking about, and it will be accounted for. Let's say Bill Gates wanted to do climate action in Ghana or somewhere else in Africa, and he's calling it as what climate, maybe youth climate action, coming from Bill Gates. It's going to be counted as part of what? This money. There are other organized structures like the GCFs and then the GEFs and so on, where project proposals are written. And even that one, it's not only government that assess. Governments are just leading this process on behalf of stakeholders in the country. So civil society organizations, for GCF, for example, currently there's a project being run by a civil society organization that assess the GCF. So it is not only for government. Unfortunately, the conception or the notion out there for most of these CSOs sources that maybe these funds are for government institutions, but it's not. Just that if you want to apply for any of these funds, it has to go through government accreditation process, because it is government that signed the Paris Agreement, not CSOs or private sector. And everything that is done is accounted in the name of the country. And so the country must be in the picture, but they are not the ones going to use the funds when they are assessed. Yes.
So in fact, just to be quite clear, for example, our partners in northern Ghana, for example, this GDC can apply to this fund?
Why not? They can apply. They can apply. They have to look at the particular fund that they want to assess. If it is, because each of the funds, they have their resource areas. And so you look at the resource areas. If you are interested in any of the resource areas, you write a proposal, you go through the application process. It is very cumbersome. It has always been cumbersome. But then any entity that is interested in assessing some of these funds can apply.
Okay, well, Alfred?
Yeah, I guess the bureaucracy comes in again.
Yes, but there's nothing, this is UN money, so there's nothing that we have been trying to argue as part of the negotiations to enhance access so that some of the challenges that frustrate countries or that make us take too long to assess. And some of these funds have been advised to work on this. They are working on them, but since this money is somebody's public money that is going to be accounted for, there should be structures also in place so that you are not just being given money to go and then spend, but money that will be accounted for. And that also accounts for some of the bureaucracies that come into this process. Yeah.
Yes, this is not the first time, monies or fundings have been allocated for, for countries to assess, to undertake projects. But, over the years, it's difficult to really see results, from this, monies, it's difficult to see sometimes difficult to see concrete results, or maybe even the results or the projects are very, very, very minimal. It doesn't make any significant impact.
I think that's not the discussion we can have here, because we went for a negotiation. But I have a different opinion from what you're saying. There are concrete projects happening, supporting smallholder farmers, supporting different capacity. In Ghana, I can show you a presentation where funds have been assessed from different sources that are making impact, because you can't get billions. You need to get some amount. If it is well spent, and then you can build on. Probably what we need to do as a country is to also enhance our national efforts, making national dedications to support some of these issues, because global funds are global. It's for a number of countries. So the pot is being shared for so many countries, and that's account for the smaller shares of this money, because the assessment that has been done globally for now, even climate adaptation gap, is about 1.3 trillion every year. And now you are even talking about 300 billion a year. 200 billion, and you have about 130 countries. If every country decides to even assess, and then also it is not everything that they are talking about that will come into the pot. So these funds should be able to help national countries to also set up structures that can also be using domestic mobilization to complement some of these international funds.
Yes, and I think that the onus actually lies on the countries themselves to initiate programs and projects and legislations, internal efforts to kind of address some of these environmental issues, because I was just in Rwanda 2 weeks ago, and I'm surprised what they have done within the last, after the genocide in 94. In Rwanda, they banned plastic. You see, they banned plastic, zero tolerance for plastic. You see, these are issues from leadership in the country, initiating, policies to address some of these environmental things. If you go there, they have planted trees all over the place. Cleanliness is their priority number one. So if nothing happens internally, no matter what resources come from outside, cannot solve any problem internally. I know we will come to this subject, but look at Ghana now, for example. Ghana, DR Congo, illegal mining. Look at the harm illegal mining is causing to these countries. I don't know about others, but Ghana, DR Congo. So if there are no internal initiatives, no matter what comes from outside, cannot solve any problem.
Actually, we did actually jump this point on the agenda, but we can do it now, which is the current state of affairs of environmental issues in Ghana right now. Can you elaborate on this, Antwi?
So the environment, in terms of the state of the environment, we all know that the environment degradation is continuing to increase, and it's causing GDP, because the cost of environmental degradation to GDP now is over 10% of GDP. So we're talking of millions of dollars. So in terms of water pollution, in terms of forest degradation, in terms of soil compaction, and all those degradations that we can talk about are huge problems. And to complicate this matter, recently had been the issue of illegal mining activities that is taking over all the country. It comes back to one particular thing, the indiscipline of the population. Normally when I speak about this issue, I heard my friend talking about Rwanda. I've been in Rwanda several times. Even this year, I've been there 2 times. Rwanda is Rwanda because Rwandans want Rwanda to run. You can't speak the same for Ghana, because Ghanaians politicize everything. And so because leadership is also in place for elections and then wants to be in power to take advantage of, and it is for all political parties. No political party in this country is immune to what I'm saying. And so most of the time sacrifice environmental quality for political agenda. And that has been a problem. We have laws, we have structure. In fact, we have one of the most comprehensive policies in place. Rwanda learned a lot from us. Unfortunately, they allow themselves to be able to allow these laws to work. When it comes to local governance, for example, Rwanda, about 4 countries in Africa came here to understudy our systems. And now they are benefiting. I think we are also sitting here complaining. So fundamentally, there is something wrong. And that is actually accounting for the problems that we are facing today. The issue is, for me, is about the way Ghanaians have actually defined it. Because assuming government of the day, any of the government of the day wants to address this issue head on, it is the same Ghanaians who are going to talk about bread and butter issues. It is the same Ghanaians who are going to complain. Recently, I was not in the country, I was in Baku when I saw a video about a woman selling coconut somewhere in a new road that has been put up. And then this woman is selling coconut under the bridge. A minister went there, or somebody, a politician went there, and then destroyed the words. And it has become a whole talk in the country. The same people who are calling for discipline, the same people are complaining. And so I think we have to be able to take our mindset out of some of these issues and ask ourselves as Ghanaians what we want and what leadership can also do to be able to support us. Our water bodies are very polluted, extremely polluted with heavy metals as we speak today. Forest degradation is running very fast than expected. And in terms of urban air quality, because we have old engines, heavy congestions in the cities throughout. So Tamale, Kumasi, Accra, Cape Coast, everywhere you go in the country, there's heavy congestion, traffic congestions, and that actually pollutes so much. And so the air quality is not the best. And so when it comes to the environment, plastics are all over. Recycling is not anything that people prioritize. I remember Professor Frimpong Boateng, when he was Minister for Environment, on one of the Republic's speeches, he mentioned banning single use of plastics, and it became a whole lot of topic because they were still bringing this bread and butter issue. And so it needs a leader that is not going for just election, but a leader that can be able to sacrifice his personal interest for the better good. Rwanda has made it because it came from a military leadership where the leader was able to institute some harsh, I don't think from the beginning Rwandans liked what the leader was doing. They bought into the idea when they saw results happening on the ground. And now they are proud of themselves of what is happening there. And I think this is the kind of things that we can talk about in our country. Unlike Rwanda, the political system is different. The mentality of the people are also entirely different. And so this is what I can say for now.
Okay, thank you for all that useful information. You know, we met when you were in Denmark, and we had a brief chat. So obviously, we are all interested in hearing how did you find this visit to Denmark, and did you find that there is anything here in this country that can be applied in Ghana, and also whether civil societies can be instrumental in anything that you have learned? It would be very interesting to hear what your experiences were in this country when you were here.
Okay, thank you again. I think it was a very positive experience. The 1 week that we had in Denmark was very useful because it was an official tour, and so the things that we engage ourselves in were very important. We had the opportunity to deal with climate data. We also had the opportunity to look at water-related issues. We had the opportunity to also look at electronic platforms to address environmental issues. We also had the opportunity to be in Lenvik to also attend a huge climate conference where a lot of ideas were shared on that platform. And so we left Denmark very positive. In fact, out of that trip, when we came back, 2 of our staff have been nominated for a master's program. We are yet to see the final, but the embassy wrote to us, and then the letter that was sent to us was based on our trip that we went. They want to support us with 2 EPA with capacity building on some of these important areas. So basically coming to Denmark was a good thing. I studied in Scandinavia, so I studied in Sweden.
Okay.
I lived in Sweden for some time before I moved back to Accra. And so I know Scandinavia has when it comes to quality of life, globally, they stand out in a number of indicators. So water, sanitation, transportation, and so on and so forth. And these are the kind of things that we can also play along with as a partner, so that we can also benefit from this kind of good foundations that have been laid down by Denmark. Thank you so much.
So, any questions on this from any of you? Yeah, Paul, please.
Yeah, during a long time, I mean, Danish companies, they have always been keen to make an export success of technologies and other goods from Denmark to third world countries. How do you look upon the chances that technology will be transferred on energy and energy conservation and other related issues, so that this process is going to take your needs into consideration and not only the export benefits from companies, for instance, in Denmark? How do you look upon that?
I think basically you hit the nail on the head. We shouldn't be just recipients of technology, but we should also be part of the design and implementation of these technologies. We're talking of leapfrogging, and so we cannot start from where Denmark or any of the advanced countries started. We can actually plug in wherever they are now, if we are hand-holded. So what we are talking of is hand-holding by any partner, be it Denmark or any other country that wants us to, because we're talking about transitioning. And so if you are transitioning energy-wise, technology-wise, then it means we have to be understanding and then being handheld to be able to do what is supposed to be done, so that capacity internally is built. You don't just export technology and then just countries become, otherwise we always continue to be dependent, and the dependency rate is going to be higher if nothing internally is done. And so what we seek to do is partnerships, so that we can hold each other's hands, because there are certain things that maybe developing countries or third world countries may possess, whereas the developed countries may also have their advantages. How can we put the two together so that it becomes a win-win situation? Now, it shouldn't be just a one-way traffic, but then it becomes a dual-way traffic. And I think that is what we expect as Ghana.
Yes, I think, Antwi, you also hit the nail right on the head, because we need to start to begin to, develop our own systems rather than always, depending on things from outside. If we are able, for example, here in Denmark, when you go right down to even primary school level, they have, certain, educational programs whereby, even kids at primary level are challenged to develop certain, I would say, certain things that they feel can address certain things in society. And you'll be surprised at what these young kids come up with. So for me, I think that in our case, in developing countries, we need to begin to challenge our kids, our youth, because they are the leaders of tomorrow.
I think it's a very important point that you're raising. And in most of the time, you cannot probably fault these kids or the country too much, because we inherited a British colonial education system that doesn't do practicals, but only look at chewing and pouring.
Theory.
If you look at, even at the university level, it is mainly exams-based, and these exams-based academic programs are chewing and pouring, and then you finish, you forget about everything. Unlike in systems where everything is practicalized from day one. Fortunately, this trend is changing. What you're talking about is happening in this country. It's up to us to be able to, because now they have a lot of STEM education structures that are picking up. Now I've seen schools, young people in basic education and GHS, SHS, developing drones. They are flying mini aeroplanes in Ghana here. I've seen them developing smart ballot papers, smart. So this thinking, if they are provided the right curriculum, I think we are not dumb enough. We are very intelligent people. Ghanaians are very smart. The unfortunate thing was that the education system that was inherited didn't allow us to do certain things. Maybe I totally agree with you that our focus should be developing
problem solving,
because we don't even believe in ourselves. If you are speaking P or Aigwe or in school, they will laugh at you. Meanwhile, English is not your mother tongue.
No.
If English is the point to assess somebody's intelligence, then all Japanese are not good. All Chinese are not good. Because they use Japanese, they use Chinese, they use Korean language to develop whatever they want to do. And it's until we are able to understand things from this perspective and do it that angle. English is just a language. And people should be able to appreciate it from that angle. And so we have to traumatize these issues. And fortunately, it is changing. And I'm sure that even though the pace is slow, I think I totally agree with you. We need to pursue this with all seriousness.
Paul?
Yeah, I also find this discussion quite interesting. And what I hear from both Antwi and Alfred here is that I mean, problem solving, as we're talking about with the climate change issues, problem solving is something that takes at the point of departure with all kind of walks in life. And I would say not only among children, I think everyone who can contribute and who should not be able to contribute. I mean, participation must also be a key word to engage whoever you are in the society to engage in these problems affiliated with climate change. And I think also a holistic approach is important, that you accept that if you do something in sector A, it might influence what is happening on sector B. And so don't dig into a deep hole and only look upon some specific issues.
I have one thing which is also very dear to me, which probably maybe Antwi, maybe you have initiated something like this, environmental clubs in schools.
Yes, there are initiatives, not directly by EPA, but EPA supervise these activities. So they call them eco clubs, and there are civil society organizations that are leading. In fact, if you are interested, I can link you to one of the ladies that are coordinating. It's a civil society organization, and they are very vibrant on the ground. And it's one of the foundations that we need to probably push a bit, because it's an area that can give us some future benefits
Yes.
when it comes to environmental protection. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if that's it, then I think we'll wrap up. If you don't have any more last questions, last minute questions or comments.
So yeah, my
Yeah,
last one
Alfred,
is
good.
so GV,
Yes.
from all the discussions we have had this evening, would you be interested in initiating some of these small, initiatives in communities, in schools?
I think it would be good if either Inge or Pia would reply to all this.
I mean, in terms of combining maybe education and climate, I guess would make sense in this context. We are already working a lot with youth and climate. Youth environmental brigades are being sort of helped to understand what climate change is about, and then they are active in their communities, trying to promote climate change action, and some of them have been further trained to be climate reporters so that they can engage with the media and with the district authorities on climate issues. They are sort of, among other things, they are reporting about the climate vulnerability assessments that one of our partner organizations is supporting communities to do, so they can kind of become aware of the specific climate change challenges in their locality. And the young reporters are helping to disseminate findings from that. Yes, so that's one aspect. Then we are promoting good agricultural practices, farming systems approach, to kind of try to build synergy effects into the way farmers work. So I think I mean, obviously, there's a need for much more, but I think climate is increasingly becoming a focus area.
So just to say thank you very much to Antwi for being there and for all the rest of you for joining in. Thank you.
Thank you so much also for the opportunity to speak. I think I like the last point that he made, that it's being recorded so that we can actually share with partners. I want us to take this conversation forward and then see how best, in any small way, we can actually support each other in this discourse. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Thank you.